Australia is ramping up its defense like never before, with annual military spending skyrocketing to $50 billion. But beneath the surface of these preparations lies a chilling reality. The country's critical dependence on foreign fuel, pharmaceuticals, and supply chains leaves it strikingly vulnerable. Imagine the chaos if even a brief conflict disrupted essential services. Could Australia truly sustain itself in the face of war? With experts predicting a confrontation that could rival World War II in scale and impact, and China's nuclear arsenal poised to exceed 1,000 warheads by 2030, the stakes have never been higher. Is this necessary for national security? Or is Australia walking a dangerous path toward inevitable escalation? Let's find out in this video. The diplomatic relationship between Australia and China began formally in 1972, initially characterized by growing economic cooperation and cultural exchange. Subsequently, the relationship evolved significantly, with China becoming Australia's largest trading partner in 2009. The relationship between Australia and China has evolved dramatically over the years, shifting from one defined by mutual economic benefit to one increasingly shaped by strategic rivalry. Economic ties between the two nations reached unprecedented heights, with bilateral trade peaking at $327.20 billion in 2023. This flourishing relationship was built on significant milestones, including the establishment of the China-Australia Free Trade Agreement in 2015, the recognition of both countries as comprehensive strategic partners in 2014, and the fostering of over 100 sister state and sister city partnerships. However, these economic bonds began to fray as regional power dynamics shifted. The expansion of China's economic and military influence, coupled with its assertive actions in the Indo-Pacific, brought underlying tensions to the surface. By 2019, China's gross national product had risen to nearly 70% of that of the United States, signaling a profound transformation in the regional balance of power. China's impact on Australia's economy remained substantial, even amid growing political strains. As of 2023, China was the fifth largest foreign investor in Australia, with a total investment stock valued at $46.60 billion. Additionally, it accounted for a significant 26% of Australia's total trade, underscoring the complex interdependence that has both united and divided the two nations. This transition from trading partners to strategic competitors highlights the delicate interplay between economic cooperation and geopolitical rivalry, leaving Australia to navigate an increasingly precarious position in the shadow of a rising superpower. The relationship began showing signs of strain during the mid-2010s, primarily due to security concerns. Australia's 2016 Defence White Paper explicitly opposed China's artificial structures in the South China Sea for military purposes. Additionally, the 2017 Foreign Policy White Paper acknowledged China's challenge to American regional dominance. These developments led to Chinese trade restrictions on various Australian exports, including wine, beef, and coal. Nevertheless, despite these tensions, Australia remains committed to maintaining economic engagement while addressing security concerns, as evidenced by recent diplomatic efforts to stabilize relations through high-level dialogues and ministerial visits. The Australian government has launched its most extensive military modernization program, specifically focused on strengthening its defense capabilities through international partnerships and strategic investments. The AUKUS agreement, established in 2021, represents a cornerstone of Australia's defense strategy. Under this partnership, Australia will acquire conventionally armed, nuclear-powered submarines through a phased approach. The program includes training with US and UK nuclear submarines starting in 2027, purchasing 3 to 5 Virginia-class submarines from the US in the early 2030s, and building SSN AUKUS submarines domestically by the early 2040s. The Australian government has pledged to significantly increase defence spending, marking an urgent push toward military modernisation. In 2024, the defence budget is set at $35 billion, a figure that will nearly double to $66 billion by 2033. By the 2033-2034 fiscal year, spending is projected to reach an unprecedented $100 billion, underscoring the nation's commitment to bolstering its military capabilities in response to evolving security challenges. Presently, the government has allocated $70 billion for equipment acquisitions, particularly focusing on naval capabilities, with $70 billion designated for maritime forces. Australia is undergoing a significant expansion of its military infrastructure, with a particular focus on the northern regions. This effort is bolstered by an investment of $60 billion dedicated to maintaining and upgrading key defense properties, reflecting the government's commitment to addressing emerging security threats. Central to this initiative are major upgrades to existing bases and the construction of new facilities designed to enhance strategic readiness. A notable example of this effort is the $1 billion upgrade to the Tyndall Air Force Base, a critical hub for aerial operations in northern Australia. Additionally, the development of 3 BEAR bases in Western Australia and Queensland aims to expand operational flexibility and readiness in response to potential regional conflicts. Complementing these efforts is the construction of new submarine facilities in Western Australia, a move that underscores the increasing importance of maritime defence in Australia's overall strategy. In terms of force positioning, Australia is making significant advancements in its military capabilities. The range of missile strike systems has been extended from 40 kilometers to over 500 kilometers, providing a much-needed boost to long-range offensive capabilities. The deployment of HIMARS rocket systems and the enhancement of air defense systems with advanced F-35 and FA-18 aircraft further strengthen Australia's ability to counter threats across a broad spectrum of scenarios. Overall, these measures reflect a shift in Australia's defense posture, emphasizing the protection of critical maritime routes and infrastructure rather than conventional force-on-force engagements. The integration of advanced assets and a focus on strategic positioning highlight the nation's effort to fortify its defensive capabilities against the backdrop of growing regional instability in the Indo-Pacific. The economic relationship between Australia and China represents a complex web of interdependence, with bilateral trade reaching $20 billion in 2023. Although tensions persist amid discussions of potential conflict, the economic ties remain substantial. China remains Australia's largest and most significant trading partner, underscoring the deep economic interdependence between the two nations. In 2023, China accounted for 26% of Australia's total trade in goods and services, a figure that highlights the pivotal role it plays in Australia's economic landscape. The trade relationship spans several critical sectors, with the total value of goods and services exchanged reaching $298 billion. Within this, resources and energy dominate as the largest export categories, contributing a staggering $204 billion to the trade balance. Additionally, services exports to China, including tourism and education, amounted to $70 billion, emphasizing the breadth of the economic ties between the two nations. While trade remains robust, investment flows have undergone significant changes in recent years. Chinese investment in Australia has declined sharply, dropping by 57% from $1,120 million in 2022 to just $613 million in 2023. Despite this downturn, China continues to hold a prominent position as Australia's fifth largest source of foreign direct investment, with cumulative investments valued at $60 billion. These investments are heavily concentrated in key sectors of strategic importance. The mining and energy sector stands out as the largest recipient of Chinese capital, accounting for 51% of total investment. This reflects China's enduring interest in securing access to Australia's vast reserves of natural resources. Commercial real estate is another significant area of investment, representing 20% of the total, as Chinese investors seek to capitalize on Australia's stable property market. Infrastructure development, comprising 8% of Chinese investment, highlights efforts to support long-term projects that bolster connectivity and economic growth. This intricate web of trade and investment underscores the complex nature of Australia's economic relationship with China. While the benefits of this partnership are evident in terms of trade volumes and investment flows, the dependencies it creates also raise questions about economic resilience and strategic vulnerabilities. Balancing these economic ties with broader national security and geopolitical concerns remains one of Australia's most pressing challenges in an increasingly contested Indo-Pacific region. Above all, Australia's economic vulnerability stems from its concentrated export profile. The nation's exports to China represented over 1/3 of its total goods exports, similarly creating significant exposure to market fluctuations. The Australian government has recognised these vulnerabilities and implemented strategic responses. First, it launched initiatives worth $40 million to expand into alternative markets like India. Second, it established new trade frameworks through programs such as the Australia-India Business Exchange. Notwithstanding these diversification efforts, economic interdependencies continue to constrain both nations' options. For instance, China remains heavily dependent on Australian iron ore, lithium, and natural gas, whereas Australia relies on Chinese markets for its commodity exports. This mutual dependence suggests that any military conflict would have severe economic ramifications for both countries, potentially disrupting global supply chains and commodity markets. In response to growing regional tensions, Australia has strengthened its strategic partnerships through comprehensive defense arrangements. The United States remains Australia's primary defense partner, with both nations expanding their military cooperation to unprecedented levels. The bilateral defense relationship between Australia and the United States has deepened significantly through enhanced force posture initiatives. A key aspect of this cooperation is the U.S. commitment to conducting regular submarine visits to the HMAS Sterling Naval Base by 2027, signaling a strengthened naval partnership. Beyond naval operations, the collaboration extends to other critical military domains, including increased rotations of P-8 maritime patrol aircraft, bolstered deployments of F-35 fighter jets, and expanded access to Australian air bases. These measures reflect a comprehensive effort to enhance joint military readiness and interoperability in response to growing regional security challenges. Australia has simultaneously strengthened its security partnerships with regional allies, forging a network of collaborative defense efforts to address emerging security challenges. The trilateral defense cooperation with Japan and the United States has become a cornerstone of these efforts, now in its 14th iteration. This partnership focuses on advancing maritime security through joint naval exercises and surveillance operations, enhancing intelligence sharing via participation in the Bilateral Information Analysis Cell, and driving innovation in defense technology through collaborative research on aerospace materials. Beyond trilateral agreements, Australia has expanded its defense partnerships through broader regional frameworks, contributing to multilateral security initiatives to ensure stability in the Indo-Pacific. In the maritime domain, Australia conducts joint patrols with the Philippines and the United States, engages in combined military exercises in the South China Sea, and supports enhanced maritime domain awareness operations. In the Pacific, Australia emphasizes security cooperation tailored to the region's unique needs. This includes support for Pacific-led security responses, coordination through the Pacific Police Support Group, and the implementation of the Pacific Maritime Security Program. As a result of these initiatives, Australia has established a comprehensive network of defense partnerships. The nation maintains active engagement in the Indo-Pacific region through exercises like Coral Warrior and Cartwheel in Fiji. These arrangements demonstrate Australia's commitment to regional stability while preparing for potential conflicts. The defense cooperation extends to technological advancement, as exemplified by the joint development of hypersonic missiles and integrated air defense systems. Through these partnerships, Australia aims to enhance its military capabilities while contributing to regional security architecture. Recent polls reveal a fundamental shift in Australian domestic attitudes toward China, with public opinion and political consensus aligning more closely on security concerns. The political approach to China policy in Australia has undergone significant evolution, reflecting a growing consensus across party lines. The Labour government, led by Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, has largely continued the policy direction established by its predecessor. Both major political parties demonstrate alignment on key issues, including the implementation of foreign influence transparency legislation, the protection of critical infrastructure, and efforts to diversify strategic partnerships. This bipartisan agreement underscores a shared commitment to safeguarding Australia's national interests amid shifting geopolitical dynamics. Public sentiment in Australia regarding China has significantly shifted in recent years, as revealed by recent polling data. A large majority, 75% of Australians, now view China as a military threat, reflecting growing concerns about security. Additionally, an overwhelming 93% of the public holds a negative view of China's military activities, while 92% expressed distrust in the Chinese government. In response to these concerns, 94% of Australians support efforts to diversify the nation's economic ties, signalling a shift toward rethinking the depth of Australia's engagement with China. The Lowy Institute's annual survey indicates that trust in China has declined substantially, with only 23% of Australians believing China will act responsibly in world affairs. Primarily, this shift reflects growing concerns about military activities in the region and China's system of government. The evolving political and security dynamics have generated complex social implications. Certainly, the Chinese-Australian community, comprising 2 million people, faces unique challenges amid these tensions. The impact of these shifts is evident across multiple dimensions. Community relations have been affected by increased scrutiny of Chinese language media, with authorities placing greater focus on monitoring its content. Additionally, there has been heightened oversight of university partnerships as concerns grow about foreign influence in academic institutions. At the same time, there is a rising awareness of potential foreign influence operations, with the public and government more vigilant about external efforts to sway Australian society and policy. The government has implemented the Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme, requiring registration of activities carried out on behalf of foreign principals. Generally, this has led to increased compliance costs, with universities alone spending over $2 million on implementing related systems. The deterioration in bilateral relations has prompted a broader societal response. Business leaders who previously advocated for diplomatic calm now openly criticize Beijing's behavior. Meanwhile, young Australians demonstrate more nuanced views, with some prioritizing ties to China over the United States. Ultimately, these domestic policy implications reflect a deeper transformation in Australia's approach to China relations. The government faces the challenge of balancing security concerns with maintaining positive community relations, particularly as 76% of Australians maintain positive views about Chinese people they have met. Maritime tensions in the Indo-Pacific region have escalated as China intensifies its assertive actions in contested waters. The Australian government has expressed serious concerns about China's vessels using water, cannons and dangerous blocking maneuvers against Philippine vessels in the South China Sea. The South China Sea is a crucial maritime gateway for the Indo-Pacific, facilitating annual maritime trade worth $5 trillion. China's activities in the region have drawn significant attention, including the construction of artificial islands equipped with military installations, the deployment of anti-access, anti-area denial systems, and the establishment of Coast Guard patrols near contested territories. These actions have raised concerns about regional stability and the strategic balance in one of the world's most vital shipping lanes. The Royal Australian Navy has significantly modernized its forces to enhance maritime capabilities. The current defense strategy places a strong emphasis on various aspects of naval enhancement, with a particular focus on improving long-range strike capabilities within the surface fleet. Additionally, the strategy prioritizes the development of advanced surveillance systems for better monitoring of the maritime domain and strengthens coastal defense through the installation of anti-ship and anti-aircraft systems. Australia's naval policy remains a blend of honoring historical alliances and addressing modern security challenges, with the RAN playing a central role in protecting the nation's strategic interests. This dual focus ensures that the Navy remains a formidable force in securing Australia's place within the broader geopolitical landscape. Indonesia's archipelagic sea lanes are crucial to Australia's economic security, with around 2/3 of its maritime exports and 40% of imports transiting through these waters. In response, the Australian government has introduced a range of protective measures. These include the establishment of regional monitoring hubs, the development of maritime domain awareness capabilities, and the implementation of integrated surveillance systems to enhance security in the region. Furthermore, Australia has strengthened its international cooperation by conducting joint maritime patrols with the Philippines, participating in combined military exercises in disputed waters, and supporting enhanced regional training programs. The Australian Defence Force has identified the Indonesian archipelago as a critical choke point, recognizing that any disruption to these sea lanes would force significant global shipping to divert around the south of Australia. Ultimately, these maritime routes carry vital resources, with China depending on sea lanes for 80% of its iron ore, 70% of its oil, and 35% of its protein requirements. In response to these challenges, Australia has allocated $50 million for ASEAN maritime security projects. The nation has also strengthened its presence through regular freedom of navigation operations and enhanced cooperation with regional partners. The maritime security strategy extends beyond traditional naval operations to encompass comprehensive regional engagement. Australia actively supports confidence-building measures among regional coastguards and maritime enforcement bodies. Essential to this approach is the emphasis on international law, especially the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which provides the framework for protecting freedom of navigation and upholding sovereign rights in exclusive economic zones. The Australian government has intensified its cyber defence preparations amid escalating digital threats, with China identified as the major backer of serious hacking against Australian companies and critical infrastructure. Australia's cybersecurity framework has been significantly bolstered with a $10 billion investment over the next 10 years, aimed at enhancing the Australian Signals Directorate. The 2023-2030 Australian Cybersecurity Strategy focuses on 6 key protective areas. These include ensuring strong businesses and citizens, safeguarding technology, and promoting world-class threat sharing and blocking. The strategy also prioritizes the protection of critical infrastructure, the development of sovereign capabilities, and the establishment of a resilient region, positioning Australia as a global leader in cybersecurity. Through these efforts, the nation is reinforcing its defences against the growing threats in the digital domain. The Australian Defence Force has swiftly established Cyber Command as a new component within the Joint Capabilities Group, officially recognising cyber as the 5th warfighting domain, alongside maritime, land, air, and space. The command structure is organised into several specialised units, each focused on different aspects of cyber operations. The Joint Cyber Unit is tasked with offensive operations, while the Fleet Cyber Unit focuses on maritime cyber defence. The 138 Signal Squadron handles Army cyber operations, and the 462 Squadron supports Air Force cyber capabilities. The Australian Signals Directorate is equipped with advanced offensive cyber capabilities, enabling it to carry out targeted intrusions into foreign networks to disrupt, manipulate, or degrade the capabilities of adversaries. These operations are carried out only with explicit authorization from the Australian government and are subject to strict legal and ethical guidelines, ensuring that cyber activities are conducted responsibly and within the bounds of international law. The Five Eyes Alliance, which includes Australia, the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and New Zealand, has long been a cornerstone of signals intelligence sharing among its member countries. However, recent developments have broadened the scope of cyber cooperation through the AUKUS partnership. This collaboration emphasizes the integration of cyber operations, the development of artificial intelligence, and the advancement of quantum technologies, further strengthening the technological and defense capabilities of the member nations. Soon, AUKUS partners will implement a data-sharing framework dedicated to electronic warfare, enabling maritime, ground, and air units to share intelligence in a unified platform. Unless properly secured, these communication channels could become targets, as demonstrated by recent cyber incidents where almost 94,000 reports of cybercrime were made to law enforcement agencies, marking a 23% increase from the previous year. Until recently, Australia's cybersecurity posture relied heavily on international partnerships. Otherwise, the government has now committed to developing sovereign capabilities through increased domestic investment. The Australian Cybersecurity Centre has identified state-sponsored actors rapidly exploiting vulnerabilities in widely used software, often within hours of public disclosure. The technological competition between the United States and China has placed Australia at a strategic crossroads. The nation must balance its significant technological links with both powers while protecting its critical digital infrastructure. This challenge has prompted the development of a top-secret intelligence cloud designed for interoperability with US and UK spy networks. Diplomatic engagement remains fundamental to preventing potential military confrontation between Australia and China, as demonstrated by recent high-level meetings between Prime Minister Albanese and President Xi Jinping. The diplomatic landscape has evolved considerably, reflecting both nations' recognition of the need for stable relations. The Australian government has adopted a multifaceted approach to conflict prevention, primarily focusing on maintaining open communication channels while protecting national interests. The strategy encompasses strategic reassurance through diplomatic engagement, military deterrence as a supporting element, protection of critical national interests, and development of crisis management mechanisms. The Foreign Minister has emphasized that Australia's front line in maintaining regional peace is diplomacy. Essentially, this approach recognizes that without credible military capability, diplomatic efficacy diminishes substantially. Negotiation channels between Australia and China have seen a marked increase in activity, with bilateral dialogue intensifying through several formal mechanisms aimed at addressing both countries' concerns and interests. Recent developments highlight this shift, including a high-level dialogue in 2023 that focused on discussions around trade and regional security. This dialogue offered an opportunity to address key economic and geopolitical challenges directly. Additionally, the G20 summit provided a significant platform for engagement, marking the first formal meeting between the two nations since 2016. These discussions were pivotal in renewing communication and cooperation on global issues. Ministerial consultations have also played an important role, with talks centered around strategic alignment and exploring potential areas for deeper collaboration, despite existing tensions. The Australian government asserts that stabilizing relations with China is essential for the mutual benefit of both nations, recognizing the importance of dialogue in fostering understanding and cooperation. This approach emphasizes that while differences may persist, open channels of communication are critical for managing tensions, preventing misunderstandings, and navigating the complex dynamics of the Indo-Pacific region. By prioritizing diplomacy, Australia seeks to balance its national interests with its responsibility as a regional leader, fostering stability in a time of increasing global uncertainty. Australia's approach to maintaining regional stability is multifaceted. It operates across various levels to address both immediate concerns and long-term security challenges. At the multilateral level, Australia actively supports ASEAN-led security mechanisms, working to foster cooperation and enhance regional stability. This support includes the development of transparency measures to promote openness in security matters and the implementation of crisis prevention protocols aimed at reducing the likelihood of conflict. On the bilateral front, Australia maintains unofficial contacts with Taiwan, acknowledging the importance of these ties while balancing its broader diplomatic considerations. Additionally, Australia engages actively with regional partners to strengthen cooperative relationships and ensure a collective approach to regional security. To further these efforts, Australia has focused on the development of confidence-building measures, which are designed to reduce tensions and build trust among nations in the Indo-Pacific. The Australian Foreign Minister has explicitly stated that a war over Taiwan would be catastrophic for all. Primarily, this position underscores Australia's commitment to maintaining the status quo through diplomatic means. The government's diplomatic strategy recognizes that prevention mechanisms providing transparency and reassurance are essential. Ultimately, this approach aims to de-escalate tensions while protecting national interests. The Foreign Minister has warned against normalizing dangerous actions in territorial disputes, reiterating calls for dialogue-based resolution. Australia's diplomatic initiatives extend beyond bilateral relations to encompass broader regional stability. The nation maintains approximately 100 sister state, province, and sister city relationships with China, creating multiple channels for engagement and understanding. The Australian approach acknowledges that effective diplomacy requires both reassurance and deterrence. This balanced strategy involves maintaining clear communication channels, addressing differences through established mechanisms, supporting regional security frameworks, and developing crisis management protocols. The diplomatic framework emphasizes that stability cannot come at the expense of core values or long-term interests. Notably, Australia continues to raise human rights issues, including freedom of expression, treatment of political prisoners, and ethnic minority rights. The government's position remains clear: cooperation where possible, disagreement where necessary, and engagement based on national interest. This approach recognizes that while Australia and China have different histories, societies, and political systems, diplomatic engagement remains crucial for regional stability. Recent developments in Australia-China relations demonstrate a cautious yet noticeable improvement in diplomatic relations. The resumption of high-level dialogue channels after a 3-year hiatus signals both nations' willingness to engage constructively. This diplomatic rapprochement has yielded tangible benefits, including the lifting of trade restrictions imposed in 2020. Australia's strategy toward China is a careful balance of preparation and prevention. Through military modernization, including the AUKUS partnership and significant defense spending, the country is committed to regional stability. While economic ties with China remain strong, Australia has diversified its partnerships across the Indo-Pacific. Public sentiment is clear, with 75% of Australians seeing China as a military threat, yet diplomatic channels remain active, as seen in recent high-level meetings. Australia's defense strategy focuses on deterrence, with investments in nuclear-powered submarines, advanced missile systems, and cyber capabilities. This approach allows Australia to safeguard its interests without escalating tensions. Do you think Australia's balance of deterrence and diplomacy is the right approach to handling China? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching.